Welcome back to GHTV and our Intro to Hatha Yoga series. I'm delighted today to introduce Sue Hopkins, our guest teacher. She's the owner of Etowah Valley Yoga in Cartersville, has taught often in Rome, and we're delighted to have Sue here today as our guest, along with Michelle Lake. It's going to be one of our students, and I get to be a student today too. Thank you, Sue.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. Good afternoon, everybody. Our focus today is going to be on back care. So it may be a little more gentle than what you're used to seeing, but all of our yoga poses are meant to slow us down and allow us to bring awareness into exactly what we're doing. We will also demonstrate the use of props because every person is a little bit different, shape, size, and age. In yoga therapy, we adjust the pose to the person rather than trying to expect everybody to be together in the same pose. So we'll start lying on our backs. If you'll lie with your knees bent and your feet on the floor, this is a position that I call hook lying position. And it's a really easy way for you to support the area of your low back. It broadens through the low back, and it's also a very easy pose to feel the breath. In our yoga practice, we connect movement with breath. So it's always the idea of bringing your attention back to the breath as it's a thread that connects the whole practice together. So let's have you guys tuck your chin in a little bit, lengthen the back of the neck. You can let your hands release by your side or bring your hands to your lower belly. If it's not enough support for your back to lay flat on the back, you could actually let your knees fall together and your feet go a little bit wider apart, and that will give you a little more support in the lower back. So let's take 5 complete breaths. You might get a sense of breathing deep into the belly. As you inhale, feeling the belly rise, and as you exhale, let the belly soften and relax down. The minute that we pay attention to our breath, it becomes a little slower, a little steadier, and a little calmer. And it also signals to our busy minds that we're in a great place. So this is our checking in process too. Allow your awareness to scan through the lower back, the middle back, the neck and shoulders to see if there's any particular place where you feel gripping or tension tonight. Our first asana, where we connect movement with breath, will be Apanasana, drawing your knees into your chest. There are some options here. If this seems to put a lot of tension in your knees, holding in front of your knees, you can actually hold behind your knees and squeeze the knees in that way. If your lower back would need more support than that, you could hold one knee in each hand and do like a wide stretch. This is the action of a forward bend, where we are creating length in the back of the body and stretching out the muscles in the low back. It's a great pose for somebody who has to sit a lot during the day. As we engage the muscles in the front of the body, it also helps to stretch the back. So let's purposely tuck our chin in, and as we exhale, curl up as you draw your knees in. It's like making a tight little ball. And you feel the muscles along the back of the body stretching and the muscles in the center engaged. So let's connect a little movement with breath, lowering down, maybe not the whole way, but part way. And then inhale and curling and rounding up as well. We'll take another breath or two, working at your own pace, because yoga is a very individualized practice. It's not a competition. We're not trying to look like anybody or do anything like anyone else, but we're paying attention to what we actually feel physically, energetically, and also our mind and emotions, our thoughts. So the next time you exhale, let's lower the whole way down to the mat. If you're practicing with us and your head feels thrown back in this position, feel free to put a blanket or something underneath your head to create a little more tuck in, so you're lengthening the back of the neck and not necessarily stretching it. From here, let's walk our feet to the edges of our mat. So we'll practice a traction twist, which is a great way to open the front of the body. Arms extend out to the side. You can stagger a little bit. And you can experiment with the difference of turning your palms up or turning your palms down. It feels very different to your shoulders. With our feet on the edges of the mat, we'll also tuck our toes in towards our shins. Curl the tailbone under, and as you exhale, let both of your knees go to the right. So our right leg may or may not reach the floor. It's the left side of the body that we're stretching. And an option to create a little more of work or a little action in the pose, you might even bring a brick underneath your knee. So as you push your brick into the knee, you can also draw the belly in and up, using a pair of opposites in order to create length. This will stretch all the hip flexors on the left side of the body. And this too is a great pose if you've been sitting a lot hunched over where our hip flexors get tight. I call this one of my anti-computer poses. So let's take a breath, draw the belly in and up, really lengthen, and then on your next inhalation, we'll bring our legs back to center. Good. Walk your feet to the center of your mat. After each pose, after each side, we stop and check in with ourselves so we can notice the effects of the poses. And then what we do to one side, we'll always do to the other because yoga is all about balance. So again, let's take our feet to the edges of the mat. Curl your toes towards your shins. That's very important action in any bent knee pose that helps to protect the ligaments of your knee. And then of course we'll drop our knees to the left. And for a few breaths, stretch out the right side of the body. So your leg can be up in the air or you can actually be pushing into something to create a little more action. We'll also draw the belly in and up. That is lengthening with the energy locks of the body called bandhas, where we use that to lengthen and extend our spine. Our arms reach strongly. Our head might feel comfortable turning one way or the other. Take a long breath, and on your inhalation, we'll come back to center. Good, now we'll walk our feet to the center of the mat. Another ideal yoga pose for lengthening the front of the body is Setu Bandha, or bridge pose. So our feet in this pose are about hip distance apart. Now we're not going to go into our hardest, coolest bridge that we could possibly do because we're just opening the front of the body. We're not trying to back bend a whole lot. Again, with the tailbone curled under, pushing into the heels of your feet, just start to lift your hips up off of the mat. Now notice if your knees tend to splay apart from each other, that can often mean that the hip flexors are a little tight. So to make yourself work harder in the pose, if you'd like to do that, you could squeeze a brick with your knees and create that forward or together action. Also engages the abductors and adductors on the inner and outer thighs. We could push with our hands. Now when we connect movement with breath, you lift up into the back bend a little bit, and then you soften and lower down. Maybe not the whole way, but just come out of the pose a little bit. So movement and breath is what is vinyasa when we connect those two together. You'll also notice that we've created a chin lock in this pose. So that lengthens the back of the neck and also massages the thyroid and the parathyroid glands in the throat. And then let's take a breath, and with an exhalation, go ahead and roll back down, lengthening your spine as you come down. So you don't want to make it shorter, but longer. And now let's go back to hook lying position, bringing our knees together, our feet apart, and just pause here and check in with your lower back, your middle back, your neck and shoulders to notice the effects of that gentle warm-up posture. And now to come onto our hands and knees, let's extend our right arm overhead so you can roll over onto your right side and use your left hand to push up onto the mat. Good, and let's face this way on our hands and knees. Nice transition, good. So from hands and knees position, we feel that this is a neutral spine. By that, I would mean not flexing or extending the spine. So one way that we can find that is to go to those two extremes and then come back to neutral. So let's make sure our hands are underneath our shoulders, our fingers are spread wide, and then turning our toes under, we'll start to lengthen the front of the body into a dog tilt. So our hips go to dog tilt. Now we do have a back bend, a slight arch in your back, but instead of thinking of this pose as a back bending pose, feel that you're extending the front of the body. So from the navel to the heart, from the heart to the throat. Take another breath, feel how open this pose is for your breath, and then as you exhale, point your toes, bring the tops of your feet to the floor to whatever degree possible, and start to round and arch in what we call a cat back stretch. So now this is flexion for the spine, where we have a really long spine, and that is stretching the muscles along the back of the body. Okay, here's a little flow. Let's go with our breath. Inhale as we look forward, and exhale as we curl and round. Let the weight of your head feel heavy too, so the weight of your head helps to pull out any tension in your neck or shoulders. Okay, now we'll find neutral. So the next time when you feel even, come back to center, a flat back position, sometimes called tabletop, and we gently lift the navel towards the spine to engage that energy lock in the center of the body. Good. Now we're going to add some movement through the legs by stretching our legs back. So this is flexion and extension of the psoas in the stomach as well. So from neutral spine, let's inhale, look forward, and stretch our right leg back. Like you're trying to touch the wall behind you. Think of your leg coming up in line with the hip. Good. And then exhale, draw the knee in and round. So that is the psoas muscle that supports our posture. It has a lot to do with our posture that we use. Okay, let's flow a little bit. See how it feels. When we go from side to side, we'll often notice that we're not perfectly balanced from side to side. So we wouldn't expect our poses to be exactly the same. They're also not exactly the same because the organs are so different on each side of the body. So we're nourishing ourselves on all kinds of physical layers, not just muscle. All right, we'll come back onto our hands and knees, and then go ahead and practice the other side. As you stretch your left leg back, imagine you're trying to touch the wall behind you. And then round and draw in. Imagine you could touch your chin to your knee as you round and curl. Good. Lengthen forward again. Good. And curl one more time. And then we'll come back to neutral. So next, in order to create some twists in the body, we're going to practice circle twist. Let's shift the weight onto our left hand and knee. Step your right leg out to the side, so your leg is coming out in line with your hip. And on your inhalation, sweep the right arm overhead. So, an example of an open twist where there's no compression on the organs, no compression on the spine. Like all of our poses, you could come out a little bit, you could go deeper in the pose. You know what we explore with each pose. It's a brand new pose. If you drop your hand way back like Michelle's doing, it feels a lot like a back bend. Or you can think of stacking your shoulders and pushing down with your left hand and really reaching up with the right. In all twists, our head can turn last, looking either direction. And then let's unwind and come back to center. Okay, we'll try the other side, stepping our left foot out. Remember, it's different on this side. Our hips are different, our shoulders, everything is different. And then pushing down with your right hand, start to lengthen your left arm. So we might think of this lower shoulder blade moving forward and the top rib cage coming back. Our head is in line with the spine. You might tuck your chin in and lengthen the back of the neck, and then turn your head to complete the pose in either direction, looking up towards the ceiling or perhaps down towards your hand on the floor. On your next exhalation, we'll unwind and come back to center. So from hands and knees, a great pose to lengthen all of the muscles along the back. Our favorite yoga pose, Adho Mukha, downward facing dog pose. So turn the toes under. We put our hips in dog tilt. Let's look at our hands and make sure they're equal distant from the end of our mat. If one hand is even a little bit further forward, it can really throw your shoulders off. So we'll take a breath, and on your exhalation, start to lift your hips up into the air, stretching your top thighs back towards the wall behind you. So our arms are stretching, our legs are stretching, and so is the length of the spine. Downward facing dog is a great pose to use before any other kinds of exercise. In this pose, you could practice what we call walking your dog, where you bend one knee and stretch down the other leg, especially if your hamstrings tend to be really tight. And then gently shifting your awareness from one foot to the other. And just notice any differences in what you feel in the legs or the hips or the length of the spine. What we try and avoid is hanging out on the shoulders, so we use the rebound effect of gravity to really push back and away. Let your head soften, your heart relax, and on your exhalation, we'll come forward into plank. A great pose to stabilize the core, very strength building, and then exhale on your knees. Let's stretch back and child's rest. The action of a forward bend, very similar to what we did when we drew our knees into our chest, but now in this relaxed pose, we can let the back, all the muscles of the back just gently soften with each breath. As we come into this posture too, you might notice where you feel the breath strongest. Is it in your lower back or in the belly? Maybe you feel the breath a little more in your shoulders or the upper part of your body, or even at the tip of your nose. So we take a couple of slow, deep breaths. If the weight of your head is supported, it's really nice for your neck and shoulders. Okay, let's come back up onto hands and knees. Now we're going to lunge, and I know that these two students are really good at lunging, but I'm going to show you an option if you're not ready for a full lunge. So we're going to go from downward facing dog, where you are, stretching our right leg way back and then bring that leg forward, okay? So I'm going to demonstrate not in downward facing dog. So you go ahead and come up into your version, your expression of down dog, shifting the weight onto your left leg and stretching the right. And then exhale, you could either draw your leg straight forward, or if you need a little more space, take your leg way out to the side and bring it up. You can even take your hand and help it come up if you'd like. Okay, so you're in a full lunge, which is a really great pose for our low backs. As we work the lunge, we'll think of lifting the left upper thigh up towards the ceiling, reaching into the heel, really strong left heel, and drawing your right hip back at the same time. If you wish you had longer arms in this pose, you could actually bring your hands to bricks and then lengthen and roll the shoulder blades up, back, and down and keep your head in line with the spine. Now we'll take a breath and come down on your left knee. Those hip flexors that get tight in the front of the body will work next. So we'll begin by bringing our hands to our knee and kind of push away from you, keeping the hips squared and the spine long and extended. If you would like a little more stretch in that left hip flexor, you could even scoot your left knee back a little bit to create more of an extension good of the front of the left thigh. And since you both look fairly balanced, let's do a version of Virabhadrasana 1, Exalted Warrior, taking our arms overhead. You can turn your palms in towards each other, lengthen the front of the body, or another option for your hands in this pose might be interlacing your hands and let your index fingers point up towards the ceiling. Inhale as you lengthen from the navel to the heart, from the heart to the throat. And then as we exhale, let's bring our hands back to our heart. Good, we're going to add a twist. So our left elbow will go to our right knee. Our right elbow points up towards the ceiling, and as you exhale, you'll twist deeper in the pose. Now this feels very different to the students than that open twist that didn't compress any of the organs of the body. One of the benefits that we get from this twist is actually squeezing and releasing all of the organs that we're working. An option would be to lift your left knee up off of the floor, so you add a little bit of a balance, coming into a lunge twist in that position. Then we'll take a breath and bring your knee to the floor. Unwind, hands to the floor, and we get to step back and downward facing dog. That usually feels really nice. Remember the actions of walking your dog, or maybe even wagging your dog tail from side to side, to feel the sides of the body really long and extended. And then we'll shift the weight onto our right foot, stretch our left leg into the air, really lengthen, and then draw the knee in, lunge up, or again, come from your hands and knees and step forward. And then we hold a full lunge, which is a really great position for our low backs. We come into that perfectly flat back position where we create space between the vertebrae and the back. As we lift the right upper thigh, reach into the heel of the right foot. We'll also focus on drawing the left hip back. So we're squaring our hips and shoulders from the wall in front of us. And now we'll take a breath, come down on that knee. Bring our hands, you can interlace your hands and bring your hands to your shin and kind of push away from it. Think of creating more space between your upper thigh and the bone in the hip. And again, if you'd like more stretch on the right side of the body, just scoot that right knee back a little bit and create length. And again, since we're balanced in the pose, we'll add Virabhadrasana 1 variation. Reaching our arms overhead, really reaching through the sides of the arms. You might even think of reaching more into the little finger side of your arm as you lengthen. Our palms turn in towards each other. Remember to breathe. In yoga, we hold poses, but we don't ever hold our breath. That is the thread that carries everything, connects everything together. And now we're ready to twist. So let's bring our hands to our heart, and then our right elbow to our left knee or upper thigh, wherever it reaches. You can stay in this version of revolved side stretch, or as you work in the pose, you could actually, with your toes tucked under, lift the right knee up off of the floor. So we have a little more balance, a little more challenge. Turning with the breath, backing out. And then slowly unwind, knee and hands to the floor. And our last downward facing dog for now. So let's stretch out. Align your pose, align your spine. Really feel this as a great back body stretch. All the muscles along the spine, but also down the backs of your legs, the backs of your arms, even the back of your neck as you let your head and your heart soften towards the mat. Okay, let's show a couple different ways to come to the front end of our mat. So John, if you'll make lots of little steps front, and Michelle, you lunge forward. Stretch one leg out and then come forward. Yeah, that's it. And then fold in Uttanasana at the front edge of your mat. Now both of these students fold forward really easily, and not everybody can do that. If you feel like you're getting stuck as you come forward or your lower back bothers you, the first suggestion would be to take your feet a little bit wider apart. So Michelle, if you want to scoot apart and show people how that looks. Thank you. Another thing, a lot of people will not be able to get their hands on the floor. So that's where our bricks come in handy. You can actually support your hands on bricks as you fold forward like this. And often this is as much of a forward bend as you should be going into. Remember, space between your feet will help free up the low back. The other thing that's really important is that our feet are parallel to each other and the inner arches of our feet are lifted. Okay, so now let's scissor our feet together. Bring your hands to your low back. Point your elbows to the wall behind you, and with an inhalation, we'll come up with the breath. There are a couple different variations of all the poses, and we're going to be doing a very, very gentle crescent moon, not the full Ardha Chandrasana, but just the side bending pose. So let's start with our left hand by our left leg, standing in Tadasana, mountain pose, with our feet parallel and our spine extended. We'll turn our right palm over, and as we inhale, lengthen this arm, and then as you exhale, start to side bend any amount. Now, two things sometimes happen when you side bend, and the one is that this shoulder would start to come forward, and then you're really coming out of the pose, so you draw that shoulder back. And often your right foot wouldn't be quite as grounded. So in order to create action in the pose, we need a pair of opposite. We need to push down into the right foot to really lengthen with the right arm. This is a great pose for us to check in with our breath, because with the right arm overhead, we've created space for the lung on the right side, and we're stretching the intercostal muscles and also the oblique muscles on the side. All right, let's inhale and come back up, and then reverse, bringing our right hand to the right side. Turn your left palm over, externally rotating the arm. Now push down into your left foot in order to lengthen. So that pair of opposites, we need action in both directions. Notice if you're twisting or leaning more on the right foot than the left. Be aware of the left foot, the length of the side of the body. And notice if your breath feels any different on this side. Even our lungs are not exactly matched size-wise, because our heart takes up some of the space on the left side, so your breath could certainly feel different. And then inhale, we'll come back to center and bring our hands our side. Okay, let's step sideways on the mat. We'll do a few lateral poses. These poses that I chose to teach today, when I'm focusing on back care, are ones that we can use the energy lock of the Bandha to really support the posture. So there are some that are a lot more challenging for low backs, and these are relatively safe for most of the students to do. So we'll start with Virabhadrasana 2, Proud Warrior. Let's step one foot in and turn the entire opposite leg out. Good. Now our tendency when we do that is to also turn towards the straight leg. So think of bringing your torso back to center. With the tailbone tucked under, we can feel broadness in the low back, and then inhale and reach with your arms. Now, reaching with your arms is different than just lifting. So you want to create action from the center of the body. I often think of reaching from the shoulder blades to the little fingers and from the collarbones to the thumbs. Our challenge is to not lean towards the front leg. So let's think of that as we bend the knee coming into Virabhadrasana 2. So if you feel, as you come into this pose, that you would like to go wider, we'll move our back foot back a little bit. So we can really extend from the hip on the outside to the outside edge of the foot. Now remember, we're supporting our posture with this pose, so we gently draw the navel towards the spine, almost as if there was a string on the top of your head. It's going to help you lengthen through your spine. We don't want to collapse into the low back, but we want to extend away. In Virabhadrasana 2, or Proud Warrior, our gaze is soft and off the end of our fingertips. We move with the breath, so let's inhale, come up through the strength of your legs, really feel your legs. We'll turn our feet parallel to each other and then reverse. You could relax your arms down between sides to rest your shoulders. Remember, our poses are very different from side to side, so even the width or how far apart your feet are could change. Our back toes will step in about 30 degrees. Our entire front leg turns out. That action comes from the ball and socket of your hip joint. So we're not just turning the foot or the bottom of our leg, but the whole leg turns out. And then notice you automatically turn that way, so come back to center. As we inhale, we'll lengthen again, not just lifting, but reaching. And now on your exhalation, bend your front knee and come into the pose. So if you're looking at your own knees, if you're practicing, you want to make sure that this front knee doesn't overextend. So go ahead and overextend it a lot. This is very tough on knee joints, so we want to make sure, I hope your knees okay, that your knee's directly above your ankle and also in line with the hip. We use the energy locks of the body to extend, draw the belly in and out, really reach, like you're drawing that earth energy up through your spine. Good. And then exhale and come up with your breath. Let's relax our arms down and actually make a couple big circles with your shoulders now. Okay, intense side stretch. We'll go to your other side, back to the first side, stepping our back toes in, our entire front leg out. We'll pass through Proud Warrior, Virabhadrasana 2. So let's reach with our arms. As you exhale, find your legs in this pose. Get everything really set. And then we'll bring our elbow to our knee or our hand to support or even the floor behind you. Does that work for you? Good. And open the front of the body. So this is about length. It is called intense side stretch, is the translation from Sanskrit. So we want to feel a stretch the whole way from our fingertips. Connect that with the rolling open of the shoulder, the strength of the back leg, the whole way to the outside edge of our back foot. And since our focus is on back care today, there's a very specific way that I'm going to have you come up. Michelle, if you will bring your hand to your low back, and John, you keep your arm exactly where it is. And now both of you come up through the strength of your legs. Good. It's a good way to come out of that pose, so you're not using the flexibility of your back, but the strength of your legs. Okay, let's turn the other way. We step our back toes in, our entire front leg out. We'll pass through Proud Warrior, so reach with your arms. As you exhale, bend the knee, a nice vertical line of energy from the knee to the heel of the front foot. Take a breath and then tuck from the crease in the top of your leg. We draw that femur bone back into the pelvis, tilt, and then bring our hand to wherever it's going to reach on this side. It could be completely different. So the first modification, or the first way that we learn to practice, is actually with our elbow on our knee or our upper thigh. Then the lower rib cage comes forward, the top shoulder stretches back, and again we connect the reach of the fingertips with the whole side of the body, the whole way to the outside edge of our back foot. So find a hand position that you like, and then inhale and really use your legs to come up and release. Good. Let's turn our feet parallel to each other, and our next standing pose will be a forward bend. Pasarito Padottanasana, a wide angle forward fold. It is important that our feet are parallel to each other. So that feels a little pigeon-toed when we start, but traditionally or typically, a lot of us stand with our toes turned out, which crunches up the low back. We really want our toes to be pointing in. We're going to think of a little bit of a back bend as we start. So let's sweep our arms overhead with a big breath, and then exhale and come forward. We bring our hands to the floor, lean forward onto your hands. Almost feels like you're going to stand up on your hands. The sitting bones point way up into the air, and we fold forward again. Now remember, these two students are very forward bendy, so don't try or don't think that you should look like this in any way. This is a pretty difficult pose for a lot of people. A lot of us will come into it and just barely get our fingertips on the floor. Okay? Good, lift the heart, lift the head. It's hard for you not to go forward. Walk your hands, bring your hands to your low back. The most challenging thing coming out of this pose. Push into the big toe mounds of your feet, and as you inhale, come up with your breath, and then we'll scissor or step our feet together. Good, or jump together, yeah. Okay, let's come to the small end of our mat to come into Tadasana again, or mountain pose. Mountain pose is the basis of all of our standing postures. So we try and find that alignment in the posture, that we feel like we're aligning the structure of the body. So imagine yourself as a skeleton, and you want everything lined up perfectly. It's not really standing up straight, but it's standing up aligned. When we stand in Tadasana with that kind of awareness, our muscles don't have to work so hard, so we can kind of release the muscles of the back and the shoulders. Good. And now we'll inhale, stretch our arms overhead, gathering energy from around you. And as you exhale, swan dive forward, leading with your heart. As you inhale, lift your head and your heart, come into a flat back position, and then exhale, fold to whatever degree possible. Then we'll make sure our hands are on the floor, shift the weight onto our left leg, so left foot, so we can stretch our right leg back and come into a lunge. Inhale, look forward, lengthen the front of the body, and then exhale into plank. So now we're going to start some poses that will really help to strengthen the core muscles. These are very important muscles when we're trying to support the muscles, or we're trying to support our back, the health of our back. Sometimes people have back issues because of weak core. So we're going to do a couple of different planks. So you guys breathing? Take a breath, go back into down dog. It feels almost like a rest pose after a plank. Plank is the #1 pose to strengthen the core, the stomach muscles. Good, so we're going to come into side planks. I know you both do side, but we'll do a couple variations. On your next exhalation, come forward into plank again. Now pick up your left hand and walk it one hand further to the center and come down on your left knee. Good, now roll open into a side plank. So you roll onto the big toe side of your foot. So you can stay with the knee on the floor or extend both legs long and straight. Good. The lower rib cage is lifting and engaged. Our hips are forward, shoulders back. Take another breath and then unwind and come back into downward facing dog. Good. You notice how they're adjusting their pose when they go from one position to the other. Your hands don't have to stay together. We would move them, we would move our feet. And as we repeat the actions of the pose, sometimes we get the sense that we should move a little bit. So you're not stuck in cement, you can move it around. Okay, side plank on the other side. So we come forward into plank, pick up our right hand, walk it towards the center of the mat, come down on your right knee if you like, which is the first modification. And then as you open into the pose, we'll roll to the big toe side of our top foot. If and when you're ready to go into the full version or a full version of the pose, we would extend both legs long and straight. Really push the little toe side of your foot into the mat. And then take a breath and exhale and release. Let's step back or stretch back into downward facing dog. Inhale and exhale completely. And then we'll come forward, last plank, I promise you guys, come forward. Take a breath or two, draw the belly in and up, lift the top thighs, reach into the heels of your feet, and then we'll release onto our knees and go back into child's rest. And breathe completely. So often when we're focusing on the back care class, we think of low backs, but our whole spine is part of the back. And so now we'll turn our awareness and our attention to the shoulders and the neck a little bit. It's really a place where a lot of people hold tension. So from here, we'll slide our hands beside us and push up into Virasana. Or John, why don't you come to a simple cross-legged posture? Can you demonstrate that pose instead? So either of these seated postures would be really perfectly fine to work our shoulders and our arms. So just like our low back, what we're focusing on is releasing tension and creating space. Sometimes you don't even know that you hold tension in your shoulders and neck until you feel what it's like to really release it. So let's begin with just a couple shoulder rolls. As you inhale, bring your shoulders up around your ears. This is inhalation and tension. And then as you exhale, feel the difference as you let go of the breath and let the shoulder blades move down the back body. Good, and then we'll roll again. Inhale, lift, and exhale, release. Good, and next we'll practice what I call cactus arms by taking our arms out to the side, or you could think goalposts, I guess. Inhale, take your elbows a little bit wider, a little too wide, squeezing the shoulder blades together. And then exhale, and bring your forearms to touch. If they don't touch, just bring them towards each other. And then inhale and elbows wide. This time, as we exhale, we'll bring our right elbow on top of the left. You can parallel your arms from this point, or continue to bring your fingers to the outside with the palm of the hand. If your shoulders are really, really tight, instead of trying to interlace your hands, just bring your hand to your opposite shoulder. Your shoulders are working the same way. You're getting that same kind of space and creating release in the upper back. So we pause for a breath or two. Notice the connection between neck and shoulders. And then as we exhale, we'll go back to cactus arms and do a couple gentle releases. Forearms together, taking them wide. Good, and then when you're ready to move on the other side, our left elbow comes on top. Again, hands on shoulders is a perfectly authentic Garudasana or eagle pose. Wrapping your hands around will create a different kind of work. Squeezing your elbows and lifting a little bit. Take a few breaths. You might notice the breath deeper in the back of your body. And then exhale and release. Good. And let's make another couple big circles with our shoulders. Okay? Michelle, let's have you turn around so they can see cow face from behind. And John, if you stay that way, then they'll be able to get two views of it. And I'm going to have Michelle start with the strap, if she needs it or not, just to show you how we can use that. John, do you use a strap for this pose? Okay. We're going to start with our right arm as our lower arm. So let's turn our right arm out. Rotate so your palm faces the wall behind you, and then bring your hand to your low back. And then we open the shoulder, roll up, back, and down, cross the midline of the body. This is a really cool energetic thing that we do in yoga, is crossing the midline of the body. And we'll hold the strap with our hand wherever it is. And then as your elbow points more towards the floor, you could walk your hand up. Good. So we're going to meet around your shoulder blade. And then our left arm rotates out, external rotation. Reach overhead, rotate, and let your elbow point up, and your right elbow down. So Michelle can hold the strap if her hands don't reach. You could gradually walk your fingers towards each other. You might imagine your strap is stretchy and you're going to take it in opposite directions. So John's one elbow is pointing down, one up, and our head is back in line with the spine. These are really important actions for our shoulders that prepare us for a lot of our other yoga postures. Good, now let's release. Take our left arm up, our right arm down. Make a big circle or two with your shoulders, and then we'll switch to the other side. So now our left arm will be down. We rotate it, bring it to the low back, let it cross over the midline of the body, point more towards your right shoulder blade, and then sweep overhead. Okay. Really lengthen, create space in the joints, fingers point towards each other. This is Gomukhasana, or cow face arms. There's also cow face legs, so this is like part of the posture, but we're focusing on the alignment of the neck and shoulders. Our head is back in line with the spine. Our elbows move away from each other. Take a breath and then exhale and release. Okay, let's come back onto our backs. At the beginning, we did an extension, a leg extension that brought awareness into the psoas. Now we're really going to work the muscle of the psoas with a pose called a sling stretch, and we'll add a sling stretch twist too. So let's begin by drawing our right knee into our chest. Now remember, if it bothers your knee, to hold the knee, hold behind your knee. And then point your right knee a little more towards your shoulder than your collarbone. We'll extend the left leg into the air so it looks like we're standing on the ceiling. A nest that curls your sacrum way off of the floor, and then we're going to back off a little bit so our lower back is really, really grounded. Now think of extending from the back of the knee to your heel, but also from the back of the knee to the sitting bone. As we inhale, reach into the heel of your foot and keep reaching as you lower that leg down towards the floor. The slower the better. Make your exhalation last. And then as you inhale, slowly draw that leg back to center. As we lower down, we're lengthening the muscle on that side of the body. And as we draw up, we're strengthening. So let's do a couple. Extending out as you lower down, and then purposely using the muscle in the front of the body to lift your leg back to center. The next time our left heel comes almost to the floor, we're going to keep it there. Take our elbows out to the side, and as you exhale, curl up. That idea of reaching into the heel of one foot as we draw the other knee in is the same thing as a lunge position that we did from hands and knees. Good, and then slowly release down. Let's rest our left leg on the floor, but keep the right knee drawn, and we'll add a sling stretch twist. We can add the other leg in a minute. So this time we'll curl up and take our left elbow to the outside of our right knee. Bring our right elbow to the floor, our hands will come to Anjali Mudra, or prayer position, and then we push with our elbows to really feel the front of the body long. If you would like to, you can also lift that left leg just an inch or so. Take a breath, maybe back out a little bit, maybe go deeper. This is strong core work, nobody's complaining, but it's pretty tough. And then exhale, slowly unwind and come back to center. Okay, there is another side too. So let's draw our left knee in, stretch our right leg into the air. Our first awareness is using the muscle in the front of the body. So if you feel like you're flexing or arching your back, give yourself permission to slow down so you can really get a sense of where you're moving from. We extend from the back of the knee to the heel, from the back of the knee to the sitting bone. Take a breath, and on your exhalation, lengthen, like try to touch those windows in front of you. Really lengthen down. This is lengthening the psoas, a very strong postural muscle for us. And then very slowly draw back. It is one of our main hip flexors that draw the knee into the chest. And it gets notoriously tight because we sit a lot. And then lower down, take your time. Connecting movement with breath. So even something as simple as these poses can be considered vinyasa, because movement and breath is what that means. Good. And then the next time you bring your right leg to the floor, let's let it there. You can always pick it up again. Good, elbows out to the side, tuck your chin in, curl up nice and straight, and then if you like, pick that right knee up. Reach in right leg, reach into the heel of your foot, even tuck the toes back towards your shin. Soften a little bit to take a deep breath and then curl a little more. And then exhale and release down. Okay, let's add our twist. Our right elbow goes to our left knee. We curl up to do that. Our left elbow on the floor. Pushing your hands together, turning. This is the oblique muscles that we're using to turn. Going deeper in the twist with your exhalation. Again, you could lift the right leg. Adds a little more work in the pose. Keep reaching into the heels of both feet. And then unwind, come back to center, and lower down. Good, we'll stretch our legs long and straight. Okay, you guys good? Okay, let's stretch our arms overhead. Actually, Michelle, do the option with your hands out T-shape. So we're gonna do some leg lifts, and there's two different variations for arms. If your low back hurts, please start with this pose. This is pretty challenging, reaching your arms overhead. Now we'll bring our knees into our chest, stretch our legs in the air. Take a breath, and as you exhale, lower your legs down about 30 degrees. And Michelle, at the head, so if your low back still hurts, you pick your head up and look towards your upper thighs. So this is very strong abdominal work, but very safe for our back because it's supported. Depends on how long you hold it. Take a breath and exhale, and lower your head down, draw your knees into your chest. Let's extend the legs into the air again. This time we're going to go the whole way to the floor. As you exhale, reach your heels forward. Try and touch that wall in front of you. You'll get to a point that you have to release, but let the muscles work hard. And exhale completely. Our last pose, that if you don't remember anything about the sequence or about the practice today, if you can remember this last pose with a strap stretch that stretches our hamstrings and creates space in our low back, it will make your back feel much better. So let's grab a strap. Do you use a strap for Supta Vistasana? I thought we had two of them. Oh, there it is. Okay. Couple variations. Let's first keep our left leg extended, or John, you bend your knee and put your foot on the floor to show that position. Good, and you'll extend. Draw your knee into your chest. We'll put the strap around the arch of our foot, extend our leg into the air. Holding one piece of the strap in each hand, you might slide your elbows down towards the mat, roll your shoulder blades under you. Good. The leg on the floor, or the foot on the floor, is going to support your back. As you extend from the back of the knee into the heel, think of taking your top thigh away from you and your shin towards you a little bit. So this is the part of the leg that we're really focusing on, the belly of the hamstring, not the attachment behind your knee. So if it bothers your knee, you're going to back out a little bit or soften and bend the knee slightly. And then maybe walk your hands up the strap a little bit more. Good. Now we're going to put both pieces of the strap into our right hand. Hinge from the hip, go up, out, and over. Stretch the inner thigh muscle. Keep the left leg strong. If you'd like to go ahead and extend your leg, it probably feels different to you, doesn't it? Notice if you've rolled over onto your right side. If you have the prop handy, you can put the prop underneath your right leg so you really create some broadness in the front of the body. Remember, these two poses are great for low backs. You can use a necktie or a bathrobe belt or anything that you have handy. The challenge is to keep the left leg strong, and we'll bring our right leg back to center. Good, and then draw that knee in, release it. And you could start with the leg long and extended or the right foot on the floor. If you're practicing a pose like this, you can hold it for a number of breaths, not just a couple, but even a minute, which would be about 10 breaths for most people. Okay, other side. We'll draw the knee in, stretch the leg into the air. One piece of the strap in each hand so we can release the shoulder blades down. Think of the top thigh moving away from the belly, but the shin moving towards your face. The leg on the floor is really strong, internally rotating, reaching into the heels with both feet. After a few breaths in the pose, it doesn't feel like a stretch anymore. You might go deeper. And then for a few breaths, let's go out to the side. With both pieces of strap in the hand, you can stretch your right arm out to balance your pose, or bring your hand on your hip so you can tell if you're rolling from side to side. Long extended spine, long extended arms and legs, really, really nice for your breath. And then inhale and come back to center. Okay, we're going to go back to hook line position where we started. So let's bend our knees, bring our feet to the floor. If your back would like a little more support, let your knees fall together, your feet go wide. And pause here and scan through your body like you did at the beginning. This is a way of checking in to notice the effects of your postures. We allow the awareness to drift through the lower back, the middle back, the neck, and shoulders. Notice the weight on the back of your head. And now, like all of our other poses, we'll adjust Shavasana. So you can see what your low back likes. Try stretching your legs long and straight and see if your back is comfortable with that. This is our typical Shavasana when we're lying on our back in a lying posture, not just flopping down. But like all of our other poses, there are a couple options. So if your low back bothers you, you could use a bolster or a blanket and just support your knees that way and let your legs go strong. Putting your calf muscles up on a chair is really nice for low backs as well. Our arms are stretching easily by our side. If that feels like it tenses up your shoulders, you can also bring your hands to your low back, to your belly. Let your chin be tucked in, a lot of length in the back of the neck. And then we'll begin to scan through the body, releasing any tensions that we feel. Starting with your feet and toes, let your feet relax, your legs relax. The muscles of your hips. Gently soften all the muscles along the spine. Feel your shoulder blades supporting you. Relax the length of your arms. Scan through the muscles of your face. Notice if there's any tension in your lower jaw, corners of your mouth. Notice if there's any tension in the corners of your eyes or the skin of your forehead. Notice your level of relaxation. Take a slow, deep breath, and as you exhale, become twice as relaxed. As we relax physically and our breath relaxes, our busy minds can relax for a few minutes too. In Shavasana, we can let go of all the worries and cares of our day. Feeling the weight of the body completely supported. As we breathe in, know you are breathing in. As you breathe out, I know. With the in-breath, I smile. With the out-breath, I release. Breathing in, there is only the present moment. Breathing out, it is a wonderful moment. So if you practice on your own, you can release in Shavasana for as long as you'd like. Noticing thoughts as they come up into your mind, but know that there's no plans or decisions here. You can acknowledge a thought and then let it drift away. Bringing our awareness back to the thread of our breath. When you're ready to come out of the pose, we allow our breath to begin to deepen. So we come out carefully with as much awareness as we went in. So feel the rise and fall of the belly, or maybe notice the breath at the tip of your nose. And each time you inhale, become a little more alert. aware of your surroundings and the weight of the body on the floor. Our deepening breath will on its own create a little bit of gentle movement. So you might begin by just wiggling your fingers and toes, or circling with your ankles and your wrists, circling in both directions. That awakening of the energy body starts to let the body flow through the arms and legs. So eventually you'll start to stretch arms and legs a little bit. You might put your arms overhead and arch and flatten your back as well, like you're trying to reach to the wall behind you. I call these full body stretches. Just reach and extend, let your breath deepen, and let your head turn a little bit from side to side. And then we'll extend our right arm overhead, roll over onto your right side, and pause here for 5 complete breaths. This sideline pose is a pose of transition that helps us move from our yoga practice into the rest of our day. The thread of our breath connects it all together. And when you're ready to sit, use your left hand for support and gently push yourself up into a comfortable seated posture, letting your head come up last. So this can be a simple cross-legged posture or sitting on your heels. We'll let our hands rest on our top thighs. You can turn palms up or down. Roll your shoulders up, back and down, and again check in with your breath. Feel a breath from the belly to the upper chest, or maybe notice the breath at the tip of your nose. And now let's bring our hands mirror images of each other, touching our thumbs to our forehead, reminding us to live with an open mind, and bringing our thumbs to our heart, reminding us to live with an open heart. May you live with ease. Namaste.